Good evening, everyone. My name is Sean Wilson. Welcome to our third and final virtual season. We very much look forward to seeing you all in person again in the spring. We are broadcasting from the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabeg. We recognize our obligation as settlers on this land to work to repair the harms perpetrated upon Indigenous communities and acknowledge the ongoing trauma colonialism has inflicted and continues to inflict on First Nations, Métis, and Indigenous peoples. I want to begin, as always, by thanking all of you for supporting authors and booksellers through these difficult times. Our official bookseller is Perfect Books on Elgin Street, but I know wherever you are right now, there's an independent bookseller nearby who would be more than happy to sell you some great books. The festival is supported by generous individuals like you, so I hope you'll consider subscribing to our newsletter and making a donation. We can't do it without you. I also want to thank the Ottawa Public Library, the Government of Canada, the Government of Ontario, the City of Ottawa, the Ontario Arts Council, the Canada Council for the Arts, Carleton University, and CBC for their ongoing support. Our host tonight is Lucy van Oldenbarneveld, journalist, broadcaster, actor, and playwright. We're so glad to have her hosting again. Her event with Kim back in 2019 was a festival highlight, so I know we are in good hands. Please give a warm virtual welcome to the most recent addition to our board of directors, our host this evening, Lucy van Oldenbarneveld.
Oh, thank you, Sean. Thank you so much. There's Kim. You can see Kim Thúy. Let me tell you a bit more about Kim Thúy. Many of you already know all about her. Kim was born in Saigon in 1968. She left Vietnam with the so-called boat people at the age of 10 and then settled with her family in Quebec. She's a graduate in translation and law, has worked as a seamstress, a lawyer, a restaurant owner, an interpreter, a media personality, and a television host. So many things. As Sean mentioned, back in 2019, when Kim and I sat down to talk about her book of food and love and recipes, it was a highlight for me, and it was just so vibrant and fun and funny. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation tonight. It's a completely different tone. The book is called M, and Kirkus Review described M as a constellation of connected characters. And this book provides a snapshot of Vietnam and the Vietnamese diaspora in North America, all going from French colonization to life after the war. It's a brief, moving meditation on the nature of truth, memory, humanity, and violence. It is a slim volume, but it covers so much with so much poetic language. It was such a joy to read this book and to welcome Kim Thúy again. Hi, Kim.
Hi. I'm so happy to be with you.
So glad you're here. Can we start with, towards the end of this book, we see a drawing by Louis Boudreau. And you have that drawing right behind you. It shows a box of many threads. And this drawing is the book in many ways. Tell us about the drawing, which in turn tells us about the book, Kim, because you have it right behind you there.
Yes. I brought the painting here so that you can see the painting itself. I'm sorry. I don't know if you can see it, but you can see all the threads and I can play with them. He has allowed me to play with the threads. And he had created this painting from a conversation that we had together. And he said, he wanted to do the cover, to make the cover for the book for me. And I never thought, our budget is $300 for the cover. So we never thought that we could commission him to, he's a great artist and, well, not accessible for my kind of, my level. But he wanted to do it. And so he has created, so we have used his painting for the cover of the French version. And he really shaped the way that I write because I didn't because he finished the painting way before I finished the book. I was halfway when the painting was already done, and so he gave it to me. I hung it really above me, and I thought I'll never be able to write after this because the painting was so perfect. But then actually no, because these threads really inspire me. I kept playing with them, and then I said, that's what life is about. There are many many people. Sometimes we connect, sometimes we're untangled together, and sometimes we don't end up anywhere. It's just a thread, and you just live through it. And so it inspired me for I was gonna say the last half, but actually when I write, I always go back, to the first line. So it affected the whole book.
When people read the book, they will understand just how perfect that painting is in how it goes with the book. So if you wrote the book mostly after he created that, what was that conversation like with Louis Boudreau? What were you telling him that he saw it so perfectly?
Oh, because I started out with a picture, the picture of the little girl in a cardboard box. I saw that picture probably 15 years ago, a long, long time ago, and that picture stayed with me and haunted me for the longest time because, of course, the baby girl who was half naked, sleeping in the box, all curled up because she was too big for the box, and then next to her there was a boy who was also curled up, but almost like wrapping the box, right? And next to them there was a bowl, an empty bowl. So I guess they were begging. They were on a sidewalk, and the most beautiful part is that the hand of the baby who was sleeping was on the side of the cardboard box, and the hand of the boy was also touching or hold, not holding but touching, so somehow. And so that picture had so many contradictions. It illustrated the misery of the human condition at the lowest level, right? These are abandoned children in a way on a sidewalk, but at the same time there was so much love and care on the same picture, right? And you can just feel this boy, even though he was sleeping, he was caring for this little girl. And then years later, I discovered that the girl was adopted by an American couple, and so she grew up, and had kind of a normal life, an American life in the U.S. And she even had the chance to meet up again with the photographer who took that picture. But then I couldn't find anything about the boy. And that disturbed me, because I said, how come, where's the boy? Maybe he's alive. Maybe he's also safe. Maybe it's just because we don't, we haven't written about him. In any case, I said, I don't care. I will pay homage to him, and I will write, about this love story. I couldn't tell if it was a brother, it was a friend, it was two orphans on the street, and that's how it all started. And this is so I told him about this picture, and so he made this box, and yeah, that's it.
It's just so wow. Okay, so the photo I didn't understand, and you have given life to that boy in this book. But the baby in the box, M Hong, who you name in the book, and the title of your book is M, two words, two letters that mean so much. Can you just describe what M means?
Well, it started off with, maybe Ocean Vuong, right? The author Ocean Vuong, the
Yep.
American poet and
Yes.
also novelist, right? And
Hmm.
he is so extraordinary. And when a Quebec publisher here has bought the rights for his poetry book, he asked me to do the foreword. And it was 2 in the morning when I got the email, and I said, I don't know how to do forward, so I'm sorry, and I no, and I cannot do for one and not for every request, and so on and so forth. So I said, you're putting me in a very difficult spot. And he said, it doesn't matter, just read it. And he sent it to me with a file PDF, and I opened it up, and I couldn't stop, and I cried for the whole night, and I wrote right away the forward, and I couldn't say dear ocean, for the forward, and I had to say M because he's much younger than I am. He's maybe 25, or I think I'm older than his mother. And so I had to call him M because in Vietnamese we don't have personal pronouns. We don't have I, we do, but it's very rare that you use that. So when you meet somebody, you need to establish right away who's older. So if I think I'm older than you, I have to call myself big sister talking to little sister, right? And if I think that you're older than my parents, you have a different uncle than if you're younger than my parents. So it's very, very, very precise. And M is beautiful because when you consider yourself M, then you know that you're protected by the other person. Yes, you have to express respect for someone who's older than you, even just by one day. But you feel right away protected by the other person. And in a couple, because well, back then, right, the wife, even when she's older, she's called M because she deserves, protection from the man, the spouse, and also, of course, that was the first idea of M. But when I read it, when I chose it for the title, I really thought of the verb aimer in French, and not just aimer, but the imperative form. To me, it was almost like imposing, on all of us the obligation to love, and so I hope that we also hear M in that sense to love, love.
Absolutely.
Don't do anything else,
Yes.
just love.
Right. I mean, there's all these little nuggets in here of it's just so infused with meaning in all of these threads. And on that note, it's a spare book. It's very powerful. Reads like poetry, and it blends fiction and nonfiction. Kim, how did you decide to approach this book in that way, and why?
I would tell you that it was all real, in the sense that I only try to tell reality because I don't have enough imagination, and reality is so rich. You don't need to you don't need to imagine anything. All you need to do is to put things together like pieces of a huge puzzle, right? And to find the right piece to put together. And actually, I think that I have succeeded in telling only 0.0000001% of reality, because it's impossible to tell everything, right? There's one part in at the very beginning where I talked about a woman soldier who had two babies and who had to travel, on a great distance from the jungle to the city, and she couldn't carry both of her babies at the same time because they became too heavy, right, to carry. So she had to tie one baby to a branch to protect the child from wild animals, and then travel with the other one, tie the other one to a branch, and go back and pick up the second one. So she did those hundreds of kilometers twice, every time, not twice, how many times, I don't know, go back, forward, back and forth. And but this woman who's 92, 93, I had the chance to meet with her and to speak with her for 6 hours. I have so many stories to tell, but of the 6 hours, I could only tell one line about her in this book, right? So that's
Yes.
why. And I said, oh my God, I forgot to ask her, where did she find the rope? How come she had ropes to tie the babies, and I forgot, so I had to call her again, I guess, because she's in Vietnam now, and she's still alive, and she was in the jungle with the resistance for, oh my God, for 9 years or so. And the most beautiful, oh, I have to tell you this story.
Yes.
And I haven't found a place yet where to tell this story. Is that she was near a mine abandoned by the French, and she found in that mine a half of a dictionary. Le dictionnaire Larousse. The second half is you have only, how do you say that? Proper names. Les
Okay.
noms propres, right? So
Nouns.
you
Yes.
have,
Yes.
yeah, and so she said, but the other part, the common nouns are gone. She didn't know where they were, but she had only all those names and stories of these the proper nouns, and so and she knew how to read French, but she couldn't let people know that she could read French. Otherwise, her comrades of the communist resistance would think that she's a double agent, right? So she kept it to herself, and she read it at night. And the way to read it in the mind, so that the light, the fire, would not signal, her presence. She picked up seeds of oranges, wild oranges, and grapefruits, and apparently there's enough oil in those seeds. And she would string them out, not string them out, but with a bamboo stick that she carves, she would put them, on one stick, and burn those seeds in order to read one noun at a time. And that's how she kept her French, continue to progress in French and continue her education through reading that half of a dictionary. How extraordinary is that,
Oh
right?
my gosh. Kim, in your hands, that is just going to be the most magnificent story if you decide to tell that in your next book.
Yeah, and so you see that when we talk about fiction and reality,
Yes. Yes.
fiction is more at the level where, yes, I know the baby was in a box, but I don't know how she left Vietnam. But then I knew about the Operation Babylift, so I gave her, that was in the book. It's her vehicle to arrive in North America, in the US, and that's where fiction, I guess, comes into the text. But Operation Babylift really existed. It was 1 month before the end of the war, and President Ford had this program designed to bring out the orphans, who were mostly children of American
American
soldiers.
soldiers.
uh,
Mhm.
but Naomi Bronstein, the one I talked in the book, she existed for real. And what happened was that I was on a TV set for a cooking show, right? Of course, and the food stylist, whose name was Heidi Bronstein, knew so much about Vietnamese food. So I asked her, "How come you know so much about?" She didn't look anything Vietnamese, and she said because her mom had adopted 5 Vietnamese children during Operation Babylift, and Naomi Bronstein had just given birth to Heidi, left Montreal, went to Saigon in order to bring out the orphans, because she had orphanages in Cambodia and Vietnam, I think. And so she put all these children, and Heidi told me the story that she put all these children in the plane, and apparently someone in the plane said to her, "You should you should stay back, get out of the plane, stay back, because there's another plane the next day, so you can have more orphans coming, tomorrow." And she left, and apparently she was still on the tarmac when she saw the plane on fire. And there's a picture of her, you know, stunned by this. And I was trying to, and unfortunately, Naomi has passed away. So I cannot ask her how she felt, being a mother and
Yes.
being the one who put all these children on a plane, thinking
Yes.
that she was doing, a great gesture, and then to
Yes.
have half of them killed in that
Yeah.
explosion. And so, so fiction for me is like that. So that part was real. So I
Yes.
said that the baby in the box got out of Vietnam on that plane, but was it true or not? I wouldn't be able to tell you if she was on that plane or not.
Right. Right. And then, but then Naomi goes back the next day and just continues on and puts more orphans on the next plane because, life must continue in some ways.
Exactly, because you in a panic situation, right? In a survival situation, so you just
Yeah.
continue. But I insisted on having the Operation Baby Lift in this book, not only for that story as a homage to Naomi, but also because I was very sad to find out that, for the longest time until this book, I really thought that it was a gesture of kindness from the American government to bring out these children, since these children were mixed, then maybe they would be mistreated by the communist government who arrived in south of
Hmm.
Vietnam. And that's really what I thought for 50 years. And then I started doing the research, and there was one journalist who was a baby lift survivor, adopted in Australia, who found again the person who designed the program, and she started off the conversation by saying, I would like to thank you for having saved, us. And the person, the man, he said, you should not thank me at all, because it was not about you. You were children of dust. And children of dust, it's an expression from the Vietnamese language, meaning you're nothing, you're just dust, right? And so he said, nobody would care about children of dust. The communist government would never take you, as scapegoat, because you don't have a value. So no, we didn't take you out because we wanted to save you. It's just a PR operation.
Yeah. Gerald Ford was
And
there to greet the plane, right? Yes. Yeah.
yes, and
Horrified. Yeah.
that's why
Yeah.
they use the military plane instead of commercial one, because there were not enough seats, right? In a military plane, it's there to carry weapons. It's not for people, and that's why the children were in boxes and they were strapped to the belly of the plane. And there were so many pictures of that operation because it was a
Yes.
PR operation. And I didn't know about that for 50 years. And I was so mad at myself not having
Mm.
looked further in a way.
Yes.
And so yeah.
And part of that, I mean, whatever, 7 years before Operation Babylift, there was the My Lai massacre, of course, and this plays a major role in the book. And just people may remember, this is where U.S. troops slaughtered hundreds of innocent civilians. In the book, you write about a helicopter pilot who came to save Tam, one of the characters. He flew in, rescued her from the death all around her. And you say, the pilot gave life a chance. He gave himself a chance at his own life, the one that waited for him after the war. And as we know, soldiers who broke ranks with the US military at that time were disciplined, they were court-martialed. So talk about what you mean by this, giving himself a chance at life when he got home.
Because in those situations, I guess, because the way he got scolded basically by the military, of course, because that was how would I say it? That was a treason.
Insubordination. Yeah, and
Yes.
treason. Yeah. Mhm.
You were going against the order. You were going against your team, your battalion, your American colleagues, and so on and so on. So it was the wrong thing to do. But at the same time, I thought that he gave himself a chance to survive it afterwards, because when you see life and if you feel life, you cannot let it go and let that baby die, or that young. And I think the real story is a boy, and in this is where fiction comes along. I gave the character, she's it's a girl in the book. And I said, when you see that, you have to save, otherwise it will haunt you for the rest of your life, to say that I have abandoned a child. And that's why I thought that he saved himself, of all
Yeah.
the nights or the nightmares that he'll have to live with afterwards. And I wanted to portray that as well, in the sense that you don't know what is good or bad anymore in those situations. Like, for him to save that young girl was a good thing, right? Objectively.
Mhm.
But if you look at it from a different point of view, it was the wrong thing to do, because you were saving an enemy. You were there to kill the enemy, and how come you're saving an enemy? So there was a contradiction, right? And you're not doing what the whole your whole group is doing. So it's also wrong, right? So where's wrong and where's right? It always depends on the point of view. and the angle, how we look at it. And yeah, so I wanted to tell that story for that
Yes.
purpose. Yeah, how confused we are.
How confused we all are, right? I mean, and in the book, you kind of move back and forth between trauma, beautiful sacrifices, like we see there, horror, love, rage, compassion, all of these things. Some have described this as your most personal book to date, Kim. How would you respond to that, and how did you prepare yourself to write something so emotional and so close?
You know, I started off only a love story. I only wanted to tell the love story between the boy and the girl. That was it. I wanted to do something very romantic. And of course, I didn't succeed, as you could see. But I hope that the reader can still feel all the love, you know, that from this book, and all the beauty that I tried to bring out. And there were so many nights, I would say, I felt like I couldn't lie down because I thought that I would drown. That's how you say it, yeah. I had
Mm.
so much tears in me that I said if I lie down, I would suffocate. I would die. And and I never allowed myself to write during those moments because I didn't want to write from anger or frustration or sadness. That's not the point. The point for me is to share beauty, to share the greatness of us, because it's easy. We are born cruel and mean and jealous, and you know, that's who we are. We are envious, and we have all the problem is we try to justify our cruelty with other reasons. For example, oh, we're fighting, we're killing in order to save democracy. We fight for peace, but it doesn't go together, the word fight and peace, right? And in Vietnam we said, oh, we're sending 14-year-old 15-year-old boys and girls to a battlefield out of love for independence for our country. We use love to as an excuse, but I think the real reason was not love. The real reason was, I don't know, ego. It was about domination. It was, you know, all kinds of other reasons than really love, and so on and so forth. And so I said, I don't want to write a book about our cruelty. That's not it. You know, we need to look for beauty, because if we don't see beauty, we won't preserve beauty, and we won't create beauty, and we won't, you know, and we won't become beauty. And so it's really important for me to convey the idea of beauty. And I'll tell you, there's one story that I couldn't tell because I didn't know how to see the light in this story. Is that one soldier who, and this is again one real story, who was a witness, and he said, when he was first deployed in Vietnam, he arrived in his camp and he saw these strings of dried ears, you know, hanging next to the other soldier's bed. And it shocked him because he just arrived, and so he couldn't understand how come these boys had, you know, those strings next to their beds, but actually they were like trophies, right, of the enemies that they succeeded at killing. And I wanted to tell this story not to 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 how would I say it? It was not to tell a horrible story, but to say that these boys, 18-year-old, 20-year-old, they had never planned on doing this. These ears, these dried ears, were just a reflection or the illustration of the hostility they are facing, or that they were living, right? They had been sent to a country they didn't know, to a climate they had never, you know, experienced, to an environment so hostile, right, that they couldn't even imagine. You know, my son, who was 18 and who went to South Africa with a credit card with hotel and all of that, and I was worried. So imagine, you know. So I wonder who, you know, what kind of an adult in their right mind would send an 18-year-old healthy boy to a battlefield in such a hostile environment. So I wanted to tell that story but I couldn't find a way until, no, never. But then a couple of months ago, a French journalist uh, asked me, and then I shared with her this story, and she said, and I couldn't say in French string. I don't know. I didn't find a word for string, so I tried to describe it to her, and she said, "Oh, so it looked like a rosary, un chapelet." And I said, exactly. And I said, if I had that, I had found that word, I would have been able to share you the story, because a rosary is so full of meaning, right? It's the meditation is hope, right? When you do this, you're praying for something, you still have hope, and yes, and you're spending a moment with yourself, with introspection, and so on and so forth. And so that would be perfect to tell the story of those ears. Sorry, oh my God. Horrible story that I'm telling you now after dinner.
Yes, no, but it is part of the horror on your way to searching for beauty, and getting through that tunnel of terror and horror and awfulness in order to find that beauty. I wonder if also part of this book is about forgiveness, and you touch on that in one story where you talk about how some of the survivors of the My Lai massacre at one point invited American soldiers who were there to come and see them so that they could forgive the soldiers, and it ultimately benefited them as well. I mean, is there some sort of catharsis that's going on for you at all in this book when you're putting all this out there?
I think, I was very lucky. I have been living a very privileged life. Yes, we did leave a country at war and a country in transition, different with the persecution from the communist party who arrived in the south, and it was comprehensible, for because you have a change of political regimes. It was not just a change of party, political parties. It was a change of political regimes. So of course there were persecutions. So because you have to break down all the structure in that place and to replace it with something new. So of course you have to shatter, you have to break down everything. And we were just, at the wrong place at the wrong time, and be part of that deconstruction or demolition. And so yeah, we left, but we had a chance to arrive in a refugee camp and so on and so forth. And since I'm here, like I say, i I haven't had the time to dream, because all my dreams have come true before I had the time to dream them, right? Because you need to have knowledge in order to dream. Like the governor general, I didn't know it existed, in order to dream for that literary prize. And then it came to me, oh my God, and I didn't know that I'll be traveling with the governor general to Frankfurt, on Monday, on Sunday, and I didn't even know that the governor general will be in Frankfurt, to dream about that. And then one day, the invitation came, and I didn't know that if you work like as a lawyer, you travel a lot and you learn. I didn't know at all, but everything came to me way, way, way before. And this is where I don't have any forgiveness,
Okay, I see.
to
Yes.
anybody, to anyone. And and but I'm lucky enough to live in this country, which is so free and so rich at all level, culturally, geographically, at all level. We are so rich, and because of that, I have had the chance to have a perspective on Vietnam without the anger. I can purify myself. The water in this country can purify me of all the evilness that we can imagine. And and so I try to convey that through the stories of others who have succeeded as purifying themselves. For this woman who had lost all of her family members, and who survived the massacre in My Lai, and who were sitting there having tea with the pilot, who saved the child, who went back to Vietnam 30 years later, and to be able to tell him, where are your friends? Why don't you bring them back so that I can forgive them and start anew. Let's go forward, let's look forward. And so I just wanted to say that it's possible for us to reconcile, and it's possible for us to move on, and maybe we need to move on, even though my mom and many of the Vietnamese communities have very how would I say it, and I understand that they have they still have sadness towards the situation, and that's why my mom, after 45 years, she still cannot accept the new flag, 45-year-old flag, the new
New
the
flag.
flag, the Vietnamese flag today, because her flag was the one before. And I said, it's been 45 years, but she has lost so much. And it's not only material, houses or cars or whatever. It's not about that. It's more the fear of taking your children on a boat that will sink, at one point. And for and I'm trying to imagine their fear when to prepare themselves with those pills, those how do you say that, cyanure.
Cyanide.
Yeah,
The
that if
cyanide
we
pills? Yeah,
cyanure, yeah,
I'm not sure.
cyanide,
Cyanide,
C
maybe?
Y C Y
Cyanide?
A, yeah,
ANIDE? Yeah,
yeah,
they had them
and
handy. Yeah.
yeah, so ready for us to die at sea. Because he said, oh, if the boat would be sinking, or if we met pirates, or if we were arrested by the Vietnamese police, then he had those pills for the family, so that
Yeah,
we could all die quickly and not suffer, right?
yeah.
So when you're parents and you have to prepare yourself for this, it must be quite traumatizing. And so yeah, so yeah, my parents are not, have not been completely purified, I would say,
Yes. Yeah. They have
from
a,
this.
a, a way different history and trauma and more
Mhm.
time amongst it. Kim, when you talk about the idea of, the idea of being purified or moving on, I wonder then how the legacy of some of these things fits into that emotion. And you talk about the nail salon industry that has sprung up from all of the refugees, but you also tie it back to Agent Orange and the spreading of the herbicides and how the Vietnamese people were so poisoned then and continue to be poisoned now in the nail industry by inhaling all of those fumes. So that impact is still being felt today. So what do you make of that?
I think that we are, for the nail salon. I again, I was trying to see what was good and what was bad, and even that experience, which came from a very good place. One
Yeah.
actress, Tippi Hedren, who wanted to help the Vietnamese refugees, because she had, she had been to Vietnam for a film, so she had a special bond with the Vietnamese. So when they arrived in California and still in a camp, she went there and she wanted to help. And it just happened that one Vietnamese woman complimented her nail, and then she said, "Oh, that's it. I'll call my technician. She would come and give them a class, and they can become manicurists and start working." And it started with one person being
No
kind.
kidding. That is true. Just how
That
it
is
spread
a
from there.
true story. Yes. And so there were 20 women about, Vietnamese women who went to that class. And then it grew into, this
World
10
domination.
million. Yes. 40, more than 40% of those nail salons are owned by the Vietnamese. So, at the very beginning, it was a good thing. But then, because it has become what we know today, it's so popular that the chemicals are killing the nail technicians, right? And I try to link that with Agent Orange, and I want to mention this to you, that the book, the English version,
Yeah.
all the colors you see are the colors of the rainbow. Well, we call it the rainbow operation because there were different colors for the different pesticides. And so Agent Orange was really this orange. Apparently the Pantone, she found the exact color used for the pesticides. And I wanted to tell this story because this is where you see how humans are so resilient, and we are geniuses, right? So the Vietnamese would hide themselves in the forest, right, in order to attack at night, or to attack by hiding. And the Americans said, "Oh, you're hiding in the forest? Oh, we know. We can burn down, all the leaves." And that would expose all the resistance, right? And that was so great, as an idea. And so they did that. They burned the leaves. And then the Vietnamese said, "Oh, yeah, but we know how to counter, to react to this. We will dig tunnels, right? And we're going to go into the tunnels and you cannot see us." And then the Americans said, "Oh, but we have bombs. We have all those B-52." And so they bombed, and the tunnels were not deep enough. So the Vietnamese went deeper. So the soldier I've talked to you about, she was in that tunnel at 9 meter deep. 9 meters. It's crazy. How do you, and she delivered a baby at 9 meters deep, right, at that night, without any lights, without anything. And the way for them to breathe was a bamboo, because bamboos are really long and hollow inside. So people would just go there for breathing a little bit and go back and share that bamboo stick to breathe at 9 meter deep. And then the Americans said, "Oh, okay, we cannot reach at 9 meter, but you all have to eat. So we're going to burn the rice." So they have invented a new pesticide to burn the rice. And then the grains said, "No, but we grow back up." So they go into the soil and went back up. And that's where the Americans said, "But we can create another pesticide to dry up the water in the soil." So,
And that was Agent Blue or something? Is that what the color that
yes,
that
yes.
dried up the soil? Yeah.
How incredible, How intelligent are we? And there's a saying in Vietnamese where they say that when you have an orange with thick skin, you will find pointy fingers to open them. The thicker the skin is, the pointier the nails would be in order to open these fruits. And this is, if we were not so intelligent with Agent Orange, okay, we burn the leaves and then the Vietnamese would just die. But no, we found a way to hide ourselves, and then we found a different way to make a bomb, that would go through.
Yeah.
And so the problem is that we are too intelligent. And so we keep making it, better and better for the worse.
Better badness, better awfulness for ourselves. It's just and that's part of the resilience for good and bad, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So where's when you look at it, it's, oh my God, where's how intelligent we are, but at the same
Yeah,
time, oh, how
yeah.
crazy are we, to keep on going.
You know, Kim, one of the things that you and I were talking about just before we started here was I just felt so emotionally connected to these characters, and I wanted to keep reading about them. And we've talked about so many different themes and stories and ideas and philosophies, and you can see how thin this book is, folks. And this is an amazing feat that you've created so much in this, but I, and it is very much a work of poetry in many ways, and maybe that's why I found myself connecting to these characters. And what you said before we came on here was that you were trying to write about an emotion, about a feeling, and I think you succeeded. But how did you go about that? How does that happen?
I don't know, because I'm so bad at describing, probably. I don't have enough words to make long descriptions and to be detailed how the door got closed and the bell rang or something. I don't have enough words for those for the
Yeah.
description. And that's why, it got very succinct. And also to me, it's always about, what Naomi was feeling when she was on that tarmac. It was not
Mhm.
about, yes, I
Yeah.
did mention the number of children who were in the plane, but it was more about, yeah, how did she feel? I always wonder for these moments. And the same thing when, there were so many numbers, right, of the soldiers who were killed, who were hurt, who yeah, for who went back, who went missing. And there's so many numbers, because that war lasted for 20 years. So you could imagine how many people were affected, directly or indirectly. And oh God, I am going to tell you this story. I just discovered, I didn't know about this, but we are having a problem with containers, right? Trading with
Yeah.
containers, traveling from Asia to us, or the other way around, whatever. We're having a problem with containers, which usually costs about 5,000 to for the whole container. Now it costs more, almost 30,000, I think,
Right.
and the
Yeah.
cost of
Yes.
everything will go up because of that. And I just discovered that this industry bloomed during the Vietnam War, because the American government needed to move so many things to Vietnam, right? For infrastructure, weapons, and all kinds of stuff,
Yeah.
from the US to Vietnam. So you have all these boats going with the containers, but then they said they didn't want to come back with empty containers. So they started working and looking around, and there was electronics from Japan. And that's how, Japan, what they started carrying electronics from Japan back to the US. And that's the starting point of the industry that we know today, right? Of the trading with containers.
Yes.
And so, but okay, I was telling you that we have all these numbers of soldiers dead, and of soldiers who are hurt and amputated or whatever, so precise.
Hmm.
But we have never tried to count the number of broken love stories, of broken homes, of broken dreams. How come we've never counted, or we haven't even tried to count these numbers? And they are the important numbers. They are the numbers that we need to know. How many, we don't know how many orphans are from those conflicts. How many
Yeah.
children have become orphans because of these conflicts? Nobody has counted this. I cannot find anything about, yeah,
Yeah.
love stories. How many love stories broken because of the conflicts, right? How many broken hearts? How many moms have gone into depression? How many, well, I said moms, but dads as well. You know,
Yeah.
how come? And
Yeah.
we should talk about this. And probably, yeah, I try in my own tiny, micro, little way to remind us to, yes, maybe we should count these emotions, which are almost ignored. They are ignored, actually, right? PTSD became, how would I say it, was acknowledged much later than the Vietnamese War, the end of the Vietnamese War, right? Even
Yeah.
today,
Of
we are
course.
only starting to really acknowledge what is PTSD, right? But yeah, but it's so
Yeah.
important. It
You know,
affects all of us.
it really does. I I'm kind of, still speechless about this book. It's not what I was expecting, but I wasn't sure what I was expecting. It's such a unique way of storytelling, and it is just so evocative, Kim. I think it's probably a good time to good place to leave this, because I can't recommend it enough to people. It is just so such an experience, I guess, is the way to put it, because as you talk about those emotions, and they somehow find their way to you when you're reading this. So I want to thank you for this beautiful work. You're
Could you
just
imagine?
such
She
a
just wanted to tell a love story, and it ended up.
And now look what you've done. Now look what you've done. This
Yeah,
amazing
and it's and yeah. So I told you about the container story, just to say that even a container, the industry of traveling containers is
yes,
connected to the
one
Vietnam
of
War.
the threads. One of the threads there. Oh, quick final question. Quick final question. The boy who was beside the cardboard box is named Louis. Is that just a coincidence because of the painter of the of your work?
A little bit, but at the same time, I wanted to name because I want to talk about the African American community.
Hmm.
And very often we talked about immigrants as a group, separate groups. You have
Yeah,
the Vietnamese, you have the Italian, you have the Syrian, whatever. But we never think about these communities working together or living together.
yeah,
Because when we were in school, of course, all the immigrants were together because we were learning French or we were learning English, and so there is a communication between these communities, and there's a lot of collaboration among those who are vulnerable. And I wanted to talk about that, and that's why the boy next to the box became a child with darker skin, and I had to talk about Louis Armstrong, and that's why
yes,
so
yes, 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 yes,
I called him Louis, for Louis Armstrong, because he was part of that war.
yes,
His voice was all over Vietnam during that
yes.
time. And
Right,
yeah, so
right.
it was to pay homage as well to Louis Armstrong.
Yes, but I mean, it's a perfect coincidence then that Louis Boudreau made that perfect painting there. Just
But
worked
you
out.
know what? I tell Louis that it's in homage of him. So don't tell
Yes.
him. Yeah, and I just want to tell you one thing, how incredible Louis was with me, is that he had finished the painting. I went to see him, and I said, listen, I have half of the book ready, so if you want to read, you can have a read. So he went into the text, and he called me the next day. He threw away the first painting and to make a new one, because he said the box was not right, the shape of the box was not right. Be- because he said, what I had told him is one thing, and then the way I wrote about it was different. So he said he threw away, and this is the final box, and that allowed me to take away one third of the book and throw it away, and I deleted it 24 hours before it was sent to the printer. Everybody was in panic mode, because, as you could imagine, the printer had already planned on how many pages per book and the design of the book, right? Because it's so thin
Yes.
in French. So they had to redesign the spine of the book, right? And the price had to be changed because I took away one third. And one third, it's like a table with four legs, and you just take away one leg. So you have to redesign everything. You have to do a new table. And I had only 24 hours to do it. And I still remember I finished at 4 in the morning. And at 6, I was hosting my TV show. I thought I was going to die, but it worked. It didn't show makeup, a lot of makeup.
It worked beautifully. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Kim, it is just always such a joy to talk to you. Thank you for this. Thank you for this
oh
conversation.
yeah, I did talk about food a little bit, right? In the book,
A
I did
little bit.
talk about
Yes,
food.
you did. Lots of faux, lots of the beautiful descriptions around faux. Um, Kim Thúy, thank you so much for this. I know people have tuned in because they love you so much. And thank you to all of you for tuning in, and to the Writers Festival, Sean Wilson and his team there who made this happen, and hope to see you all in person again soon.
Thank you
So
so
good night.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Kim.
you.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.